Hello and welcome to this episode of Big League Perspective. My name is Billy Pinckney, author of Passion Prevails. And today we have Scott Braun joining us here on the show. He's the current host of Foul Territory, former broadcaster with MLB, and he's got an incredible story, a lot of great stuff to say, especially about the mental side and what he went through, what he dealt with, and ultimately finding that peace and enjoying what he loves to do each day in the sports industry, in the baseball media world. So let's get right to it. This chat with Scott Braun. We're joined by four-time Emmy Award winner and current host of Foul Territory, Scott Braun. Scott, appreciate you joining me, man.
Billy, great to talk to you and love everything that you do on socials and with the show.
No, I appreciate it. So a lot of what we do here is talking about the mental side and how to deal with adversity, how to deal with the challenges that your career will throw at you. And a lot of times we have athletes on here, but I figured you and your story and working with so many professional athletes, it made a whole lot of sense to have you on this show. And, talking about the process and getting to the highest level in your industry, what do you believe it took in order to reach that highest level?
I think there's many ways to get to where you want to go in sports media. And I'm now not in the young man's game or the young women's game because I'm in my mid-30s. So what I did in high school and college 15, 20 years ago is not necessarily the path anymore. But for me, some of the cores that you can look at are extreme dedication, probably almost to a degree that was mentally unhealthy, but it was a vice at times, the obsession to pick a passion and pursue it and make it a part of my everyday life. So that can be a great advantage, and mentally it could be a disadvantage because you're not necessarily giving yourself enough time to pick up other interests and just do, the modern term of self-care, right? Where every day, if it's all you're thinking about, it's probably a little bit too much, right? You need to actually take a break. That's why vacations are important for an employee. If you work 52 weeks a year, you're probably going to be less effective than if you worked 48 to 50 weeks a year or whatever suits you for taking a little bit of time to reset. And the same goes for a weekend as well. If you're a weekend person or if you just have a day or two off at least during the week. So if you go back to my younger days, it's real simple. I wanted to be a pro athlete like many others. I experienced competition that helped steer me towards another direction. And I talk a lot. And I thought that broadcasting sounded cool. I'm like, this is a job? Okay. And then you watch and listen to people that you love. And some are like super talented and some are okay. And you're like, I think I could be just as effective as this person. And I started running with it. But I was obsessed at a young age. And that was by far the biggest advantage. Because I was jumping into real life work at as early as possible, auditioning for jobs with minor league teams and digital companies that had new shows, just a bit ahead of my time on that front, and it worked.
Yeah, you talk about that obsession, and it seems like an imbalance almost, because I remember growing up just being absolutely obsessed with what I was doing with the team I would work for, and obviously it was probably a bit over the top, but at the same time, you need to have a little bit of that imbalance in the beginning stages in order to get ahead and show that you're capable of doing it, prove to yourself that, this is really what I want to do. And I think maybe later in life, it makes sense to have more of a balance. But in the beginning, do you think it made more sense for you to just go completely all in and maybe you have later nights at the ballpark or working on your craft instead of, doing things with your friends or maybe making some other choices?
Yeah, in high school, you go to school, and then I would play a sport, and then I would work for a local news station, often until 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And that was pretty abnormal for a high school kid. I didn't do it every day, but I did it enough that it certainly was taxing on the sleep schedule and just on the life balance schedule. But I loved it, so I didn't really care. So I didn't think about it. I didn't think about the mental component of pretty much anything until much later on in life, so it didn't matter. So I would not take any of it back because I am big on path. And if you veer in a different path, it turns you into a different direction almost every time, right? You're not necessarily going up to end up in the same spot. So I do feel like everything I did led me up to this moment. And that includes this very, very present moment. Because right now I'm at my happiest state from a work quality perspective, a work life balance perspective, just an overall happiness of doing my job every day. I really rarely dread doing anything related to sports media in my current role. I'm trying to think, like, maybe if you're feeling really sick and you're like, yeah, I can't take a day off because it's just not my style. But aside from that, I'm excited for Mondays, and I have a lot of friends that can't say that, and they're like, "That's it, you're doing it."
No, exactly. You want to obviously show up and enjoy the work that you're doing. And obviously, to get to that point, you had to make sacrifices. You had to do things differently than other people, than most people who you probably grew up with. Was there ever a point where you were able to stand there and look around and notice, man, I'm making these decisions that are a lot different than my friends, maybe a lot different than people who I'm going to school with. But I know deep down that these are the decisions that are going to level me up and allow me to have a much brighter future.
Yeah, I felt like I did that, and I picked up on it really early on. You're going to miss a lot, and work is going to be your top priority. And that's not the case for everyone, but you're also able to do that when you're at a young age and you don't have as many life responsibilities. You don't have someone that you need to care for, whether it's a kid or an elderly grandparent or anything like that, right? I mean, I had my normal family life, but luckily a lot of support that I'm really able to go full force with my job. So sacrifices galore. I mean, I worked almost every weekend for almost a decade, and I didn't really complain about it until the end. Until the end, I started complaining because I just wasn't as happy with what I was doing. But for a long time, I understood that this is what I signed up for, and that was cool. I always am surprised when I talk to somebody that wants to get into sports and they're like, yeah, I don't want to do that schedule. And I'm like, you might be able to do that. Like, if you're working as a lawyer for a league or a team or an entertainment agency, there are ways to accomplish that. But for the most part, if you're working in sports, you're probably going to put in some unique hours, and you need to be okay with that or you're going to be very frustrated. So I was cool with the, quote, sacrifice. It's time. It's all good. I also am a little bit of an introvert in some ways. I feel like the introvert extrovert thing sometimes is tough to describe on a case by case basis. If someone's like, well, but you're going out all the time. I mean, that's not me, but I'm just saying I actually was able to, go on a show, work an event, and then return home, be preparing, and kind of spend a lot of time by myself and be very okay with that. So that helped the cause too. When you're missing out on things, if you have FOMO, it's going to probably be more difficult. I rarely have FOMO.
Yeah, no, that whole introvert extrovert thing, it's really, where do you get your energy? When is your energy created? Is it created when you're inside in solitude with yourself, focusing on something you enjoy, maybe just reading a book or doing some research, whatever it is, or are you getting that energy from being out or and about, around people all the time? And it can be tough to figure that out. And I think a lot of kids definitely are, maybe think that they should be out doing things, but in reality, maybe that's not the thing they should be doing. Maybe they'll get their energy if they're just in their room doing their thing, or just trying to learn or get better, or just rest. It really depends.
Yeah, a lot of people, most people have batteries. So it's just a matter of when it gets drained and when you need to recharge it. So for me, I can go all out to cover the playoffs for a month or be on the road for a spring training show every day. But then eventually there is also the end goal. And sometimes actually, if you're on the road for a scenario like that, for me, it's just, hey, I'm not going to go to dinner every single night, right? Like, I'm going to order in a few times and just wind down because I've been talking and performing for a long time. Also, the difference between what I do now and what I did in the past is that there is less of an acting component. You do have to be more careful when you're on TV and you're working at a league. It's just what you sign up for there too, right? That's how league and teams work with their media situations, most of them. It's not like you can't do anything, but it's much more guarded with how you speak, and that is a mental exercise. Now I pretty much just talk. Sometimes I'm a little careful with not over cursing or something like that, or sometimes Foul Territory is running on a linear TV platform and we have to be more cognizant of following FCC guidelines. That's cool. That's whatever. But for the most part, I can just talk. and say, yeah, what the heck's going on there? That makes no sense. Talking about a team approach or what a player did or what an owner did. And that freedom helps me feel like I'm not, performing with every word.
Another component to this too, obviously, you look on social media, you look on the TV, and you see you out there with players or at the ballpark. People may say, "Oh man, that's what a great life, what a great opportunity he's got." But there's adversity. Like there are challenges that do come up throughout your career, throughout anybody's career in any industry. What adversity would you say you had to go through that you'd like to share with the listeners out there who maybe are dealing with some stuff themselves and really aren't sure how to go through that?
I think the number one thing to think about is that your goals will always or likely change. So what you wanted to do when you were 10 versus 15 versus 20 might at least evolve. And that happened for me. There reached a point where I was like, this is not me, but this is what little me wanted to do. And I like a version of this, but I don't like this to a T. And sometimes you're not in a position to make that change based on lifestyle or what you're getting paid or whatever it is, right? Maybe you have a family that you need to stay near. But for me, I was like, there's something more here. I've put in a lot of time to the same spot. I was at one primary job with many side jobs, but the full-time job was in the same spot for almost 12 years. And that's not too common. It's more common maybe in broadcast than it is in other fields where you'll have a team broadcaster that's there forever. But it wasn't me unless the spot where I was at was evolving too. So I needed to make a change. And you need to eventually accept that it is okay to just go to your boss and say, I'm done. I had a good run. And that's what I did. I was just like, I put in a good amount of time here. I feel like I was a really great team player and asset, and I had a blast. But there's other things that I want to do. There's other places that I want to be, lifestyle-wise. And you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, what do you really want? So that's what I did. And I'm so glad that I did it. And it's not like you didn't give it the old college try. I mean, I did many years of really the same type of job and loved it. But that doesn't mean that you have to do it forever until they tell you you're done. I didn't believe in that. And I also I'm full of ideas. I wanted to be able to activate that part of my brain and be more on the executive and business side of things. And I am truly doing that. I spend way more time doing that than I am hosting shows. And I do host a few hours of shows a day. But the other 9-ish hours that I'm working are behind the scenes. And I really love being a part of that.
No, definitely. And when you're trying to come to that decision and when you're facing reality, you're trying to figure out, man, what's next for me. How long did it take you to come to that realization? Was it something that just dawned on you one day and you just realized, hey, this is the decision I have to make right now? Or was it more of a gradual thing? Because I know a lot of people are confused sometimes about what the next steps should be in their career, and they just drag it out. They're not really sure, and it's not something that they really enjoy. It kind of puts them down a little bit.
Yeah, it was gradual until it was sudden, if that makes sense. So you're figuring out what your next move is, what you want to do, and you're coming up with multiple options. And you're also looking at what you love about what you currently do, if you feel that way. Some people are just like, I've seen this actually a lot in sports, okay? Quick sidebar. So I've come across quite a few producers that were accountants for like 5 to 7 years. And then they're like, I just don't like it. I'm picking on that field, but I do know at least one that was in that world and said, I'm being paid well. I went to school for this. I do a nice job. I work for a nice company. I like my coworkers, but I'm obsessed with sports and it's all I want to do. And there are opportunities to work there and it's not going to pay as well. And I probably am going to have to move, but I want to try it out. And that person's still doing that. And there are a few other examples that I can think of pretty quickly too, where they weren't in sports or they weren't in media and then they moved that way and they felt like that was way more fun. And that's cool. I like that,
There can be a lot of uncertainties. There can be things that just come up, and it's obviously not an industry where, it's very predictable. There's a lot of unpredictability in it. So how were you able to navigate that through those unpredictabilities?
And it's not a clear-cut path industry either. So I have some friends and family that are in the medical world, and you need to nail it on certain grades and you need to do interviews for programs, but there is a direct path to where you want to get. That's not the case for the most part in media, and it also just might change. There are jobs now that didn't exist in the past, and vice versa. There are jobs in the past that don't exist now. So I think there's always a feeling of instability for most people in media because you just don't know if the industry is going to change and jobs are going to be cut. For me, I just was so into the digital podcast authenticity side of the space that has continued to emerge, for lack of a better term, and I think it's an easy term, new media. And I love it. I am always traveling. I've been traveling, for many years of my life, calling games, and I'm obsessed with pods. And I didn't feel like I was getting exactly what I wanted in the sport that I love and consume. And I was looking at other sports like basketball and football as great examples with playbooks that have worked. And we just started drawing up our own for foul territory. I'm like, all right, what would the modern baseball network look like if you could draw it up? All those ideas that you've had bottled up for years that you really can't do anything about. And that's what we started doing.
No, that's incredible. Hey, and before I let you go, got to ask you, what's your message to the kids out there? Could be ones in the sports media industry, ones who are playing a sport right now who might even eventually want to transition into a career in media. What's your message to them on things that they should look out for and how they can get to that next level and be themselves as they do it?
Pay close attention if you're a media or sports fan to what you like, what you consume, and what they're doing. If you can, reach out to people, whether it doesn't have to be the host of the show. It could be someone behind the scenes, right? Do some homework on LinkedIn. There's so much more access nowadays to be able to reach people that you aspire to work with. So try and connect with those people. See if you can grab them when they're driving home from work for 20 minutes to quiz them on what they do. And then when you are entering that space, with an interview for an internship or eventually for a job, or even if you're just picking someone's brain, have a plan. Have 20 questions, even if you only get to 10, right? Just really get your shit together. Because that's the one thing that you can do. You might not know much yet, but you can have it all together where you know what you want to ask, you know what you want to answer. I mean, we have an internship program. And we talk to some superstars that we work with. And then sometimes someone comes in, you have any questions in an interview? No. You got to have questions on an interview. You have to. Even if you don't have that many questions about the job itself or the program, then you still want to hear from the person that you're speaking with for the most part. So just have a plan and be excited about it. It should be easy, right? If you're so excited that you're going to talk to a producer of your favorite show, I'd be sitting there for hours the night before, like just rattling through everything in my brain and writing it down on my computer. So I think just thinking of things that way and making it serious and making it a passion will make it much easier to then actually land in the position of your dreams.
Great stuff. Sky, I appreciate you joining me. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Billy. Great stuff, man. Great to have you. On the reverse side of things here, I appreciate all the love for foul territory that you've expressed as well, and you do a great job.
If you're a high school, college, or youth athlete, you got to check out this book, Passion Prevails, or if you know one, it would make a great gift. This book is a compilation of interviews with professional athletes, mainly baseball players, but you have coaches in here, other professionals who have had decades and decades of experience in the sport. And the main goal is this: to help inform, entertain, and give value, provide value on how to navigate your career while facing adversity, how to deal with those challenges that are inevitable, that you're gonna face throughout your career. And many kids out there don't have the proper instruction and guidance on how to navigate those challenges until they're a little bit older, until they have those experiences themselves and need to learn the hard way. So go check it out. It's filled with gems, great quotes, and messages from some of the best players in the sport of baseball. So I highly recommend it. Go check it out. It's in the show notes below. What a great chat with Scott Braun. A lot of great things he had to say and how to navigate your career. The path is different for everybody, right? Everyone has a unique path similar to your on-field playing career. things just happen. It's not one size fits all. Different situations call for different opportunities, different experiences, and he obviously had a lot of different goals of his that he was able to reach, and there wasn't a straight path. You look at professional baseball or any sport, there's different levels that you have to go through, and sometimes you get promoted, then demoted, and then promoted again, and you have another opportunity. So it's really an individual case-by-case basis. Remember to always stay inspired and be inspired as you're navigating your career. So I'd like to thank you guys for checking out the show, but before we do go, we have the 10 perspective points, the core values of this show. Number 1, your identity is not in the sport that you play. 2, be faithful to God and his plan for you. 3, prove yourself right, not others wrong. Number 4, you were born with a purpose. Allow it to be revealed to you. Number 5, your teammates will remember how you treated them. Number 6, learn from others' mistakes as if they were your own. Number 7, create your own approach if you want a different result than others. Number 8, live for each day, not the weekends. Number 9, create your own version of cool, because fitting in is what losers do. And number 10, embrace your passion, because passion prevails. Thank you guys so much for checking out this episode. Be sure to subscribe, like the show, comment, review it, send to somebody who you know can be impacted by it. We'll see you guys next time here on Big League Perspective.